The Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on the Fort Irwin training ground, where dust clung to everything: boots, rifles, and the dreams of the recruits standing in formation. Among them was Amara Cole, a 24-year-old black woman whose steady gaze hid a fire that had carried her through years of hardship. Her uniform was crisp, but faint scars traced her jawline, remnants of a past she didn't talk about. She stood tall, shoulders squared, ignoring the whispers that had followed her since she arrived at basic training 2 weeks ago. Today, though, the whispers turned into something uglier. Private Ethan Ramsey, a wiry recruit with a smirk that seemed permanently etched on his face, leaned toward his buddy and muttered, loud enough for Amara to hear, "Look at her face. Bet she got those scars running from trouble in her neighborhood." His friend snickered, and a few others turned to stare. Amara's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes forward, focusing on the distant mountains. She'd heard worse. Growing up in a rough corner of Chicago, she'd learned to let words slide off her like rain on glass. But Ramsey wasn't done. "Hey, Cole," he called, stepping out of line, his voice dripping with mockery. "What's the deal with those scars? Gang fight? Or did you just trip into some broken glass on your block?" The laughter that followed cut through the still air, sharp and cruel. Amara's hands clenched at her sides, but she didn't turn. Not yet. The drill sergeant, a grizzled man named Torres, barked at Ramsey to get back in line, but the damage was done. Eyes were on her now, waiting for a reaction. Amara's mind flashed to the night those scars were carved into her skin, not by a gang, but by a car accident that stole her mother and left her fighting for her life at 16. She'd clawed her way back, through surgeries, grief, and a system that didn't care about a black girl with no money and big dreams. She was here, at Fort Irwin, to prove she was more than her past. But Ramsey's words were a match to dry grass, and something in her snapped. She turned, her voice low but steady, cutting through the laughter like a blade. "You don't know me, Ramsey, and you don't want to." The air went quiet, the other recruits shifting uncomfortably. Ramsey's smirk faltered, but he doubled down, stepping closer. "Oh, I know enough. You don't belong here, Cole. This ain't your place." Before Amara could respond, Torres was between them, his voice a thunderclap. "Enough. Both of you, to the front now." As they marched forward, Amara felt the weight of every stare, the whispers starting again. She didn't care about Ramsey's taunts. Not really. What burned was the assumption, the same one she'd faced her whole life, that she was less than, that her scars told a story of failure instead of survival. As she stood before Torres, the sergeant's eyes flicked to her scars, then back to her face. "You got something to prove, Cole?" he asked, his tone unreadable. Amara met his gaze, unflinching. "Yes, sir. And I will." Torres nodded, almost imperceptibly, and sent them back to formation. But as Amara turned, she caught Ramsey's glare, promising this wasn't over. That night, in the barracks, Amara sat on her bunk, staring at the dog tags in her hand. She joined the army to escape the box the world had put her in, to be more than the girl from the wrong side of town. But Ramsey's words echoed a truth she couldn't ignore. People saw her scars, her skin, and made up their minds before she could speak. She traced the raised lines on her jaw, remembering her mother's voice. "You're stronger than they know, Amara. Don't let them define you." The next morning, training resumed, but the tension between Amara and Ramsey was a live wire. During a tactical exercise, Ramsey accidentally bumped her, knocking her rifle into the dirt. "Oops," he said, his grin venomous. Amara picked up her weapon, brushing off the dust, her eyes locked on his. She didn't say a word, but the message was clear. She wasn't backing down. As the days passed, Amara threw herself into training, outrunning, outshooting, and outworking half the platoon. Her scars became less a topic of gossip and more a symbol of her grit. But Ramsey's taunts didn't stop, and neither did the whispers from a few others who shared his views. They didn't see a soldier. They saw a black woman who, in their minds, didn't fit. Amara didn't care about fitting. Inch wanted to stand out. What she didn't know was that someone was watching her. Someone who saw more than her scars or her skin. High above the training ground, in a command tent, a figure stood at the edge of the field, eyes fixed on her every move. General Marcus Holt, a legend in the Army, had come to Fort Irwin for an unannounced inspection. His weathered face gave nothing away, but his gaze lingered on Amara, and in his hand was a classified file with her name on it. Amara didn't notice the general's presence, but she felt the weight of something bigger than Ramsey's taunts. The training ground was her battlefield, and she fought it with every ounce of her strength. During a live-fire exercise, she moved with precision, her shots ringing true while others fumbled. Even Torres, who rarely praised anyone, gave her a curt nod. "Keep it up, Cole," he said, his voice gruff but approving. Ramsey, though, was relentless. He saw her success as a challenge to his own ego. During a break, as recruits gulped water under the blistering sun, he sidled up to her again. "Getting cozy with the sergeant. Huh? Bet you think you're special now." His tone was laced with venom, and a few recruits nearby exchanged glances, waiting for her response. Amara took a slow sip from her canteen, her eyes never leaving his. "I don't think I'm special, Ramsey. I know I am." The words hit like a slap, and Ramsey's face reddened. Before he could fire back, Torres called them to attention, but the encounter left a mark. Amara wasn't just fighting to prove herself to the Army. She was fighting a deeper battle against the assumptions that clung to her like shadows. Every step she took, every target she hit, was a defiance of the narrative Ramsey and others tried to write for her. That night, as the barracks quieted, Amara overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Ramsey and two other recruits, huddled in a corner, were talking in low tones. "She's got to go," Ramsey said, his voice sharp. "We can't have someone like her showing us up. I heard she's got a record bet, that's why she's got those scars." The others murmured agreement, and Amara's heart sank. A record? She'd never been in trouble. Not like that. But lies spread faster than truth, and she knew Ramsey was planting seeds to undermine her. The next day, during a grueling obstacle course, the tension boiled over. Amara was scaling a rope wall when she felt a sharp tug on the line. She glanced down to see Ramsey below, his hand on the rope, a smirk on his face. "Careful, Cole," he called. "Wouldn't want you to fall and mess up that face even more." Her arms burned, but she hauled herself up, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her struggle. When she reached the top, she looked down at him, her voice steady. "You'll have to try harder than that." The incident didn't go unnoticed. Torres pulled Ramsey aside, his voice low but furious. Amara couldn't hear the words, but Ramsey's face told her he'd been put in his place. Still, she knew this was far from over. Ramsey wasn't just a bully, he was a threat, and his whispers were starting to turn others against her. She overheard recruits muttering about her attitude, her past, things they couldn't possibly know but believed because Ramsey said it. What Amara didn't know was that the truth about her was already known to someone who mattered. General Holt had been observing her for days, his presence unnoticed by the recruits. In his tent, he pored over her file, which detailed not just her training performance, but her life before the Army. The accident that scarred her face had also left her orphaned, forcing her to navigate foster care while maintaining a near-perfect academic record. She'd earned a scholarship to college but chose the army instead, driven by a need to serve and to redefine herself. Holt, a man who'd seen countless recruits come and go, saw something in Amara that others missed, potential that could change everything. Holt's interest wasn't just professional. He'd grown up in a small town where he'd faced his own battles as a black man in a world that often tried to diminish him. Amara's file reminded him of his own journey, but there was something in her record that made his eyes narrow. A single line, buried in classified notes, mentioned a call sign, Phoenix. It wasn't assigned yet, but it was a name Holt knew well, tied to a program few in the Army even whispered about. Back on the training ground, Amara pushed through another day, her focus razor-sharp. She didn't know about Holt or the file, but she felt the pressure mounting. Ramsey's taunts were growing bolder, and the whispers were spreading. During a night exercise, she overheard one recruit say to another, "Ramsey's right, she doesn't fit here. Why is she even trying so hard?" The words stung, but Amara channeled them into her performance, outpacing her peers in every drill. Yet the isolation was real. At night, she lay awake, wondering if she'd made a mistake coming here. The Army was supposed to be her escape, her chance to be judged for her actions, not her appearance or her past. But Ramsey's campaign was wearing her down, and she could feel the cracks forming. She clutched her mother's words like a lifeline, "You're stronger than they know." She just hoped it was enough. The breaking point came during a high-stakes field exercise, a simulated urban combat scenario designed to test the recruits' teamwork and resilience. The platoon was split into squads, and Amara found herself paired with Ramsey and his two closest allies, Privates Daniels and Weaver. She knew it was no accident Ramsey had influence, and he'd maneuvered to make her life harder. The mission was simple on paper: navigate a mock village, neutralize threats, and secure an objective. But with Ramsey in her squad, Amara knew it would be anything but simple. As they moved through the dusty streets, rifles at the ready, Ramsey took every chance to undermine her. "Stay back, Cole," he hissed when she took point. "Don't want you tripping over your own ego." Daniels and Weaver chuckled, but Amara ignored them, her focus on the mission. She spotted a hostile Targeta dummy rigged with sensors and signaled for the squad to take cover. Ramsey ignored her, charging forward and triggering a simulated explosion that cost the squad points. "Nice going, Cole," Ramsey sneered as they regrouped. "You're going to get us all killed." Amara's eyes flashed, but she kept her voice calm. "You didn't follow my signal, Ramsey. That's on you." The argument escalated, their voices echoing through the mock village. Daniels and Weaver sided with Ramsey, blaming her for the failure. The rest of the platoon, watching from a distance, murmured among themselves, and Amara felt the weight of their judgment. Torres intervened, his face like stone. "You're a squad. Act like it. Cole, Ramsey, figure it out, or you're both out." Amara nodded, but Ramsey's glare promised retribution. As the exercise continued, she took the lead again, her instincts sharp despite the hostility. She guided the squad through a narrow alley, spotting traps the others missed. When they reached the Objectivia crate marked with a red flag, she secured it flawlessly, earning a rare grunt of approval from Torres. But Ramsey wasn't done. As they returned to base, he tripped, knocking Amara into a ditch. Her knee hit a rock, pain shooting through her leg, but she scrambled up, refusing to show weakness. "Watch your step," Ramsey said, his voice mock innocent. Amara's hands shook with rage, but she bit back her words. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. That night, The barracks buzzed with gossip. Ramsey's version of the exercise spread like wildfire. Amara had botched the mission, endangered the squad, and was only still here because Torres pitted her. The lies stung, but what hurt more was the silence from the other recruits. No one defended her. Even those who'd seen her skill firsthand stayed quiet, unwilling to cross Ramsey. Amara sat alone, cleaning her rifle, her mind racing. She'd faced prejudice before, teachers who assumed she'd fail, cops who eyed her like a criminal, but this was different. This was her chance to rewrite her story, and Ramsey was trying to tear it apart. She thought of quitting, of walking away from the hate, but her mother's voice echoed again. Don't let them define you. Unknown to Amara, General Holt was piecing together a different story. In his tent, he reviewed footage of the exercise, noting her every move, her quick thinking, her resilience, her leadership under pressure. He cross-referenced her file with classified reports, his jaw tightening as he read. The call sign Phoenix wasn't just a nickname. It was tied to a covert program for elite recruits, those with the potential to become more than soldiers. Holt had been part of that program decades ago, and he saw in Amara the same fire that had carried him through. But Holt also saw the problem. Ramsey's behavior wasn't just a personal vendetta. It was a symptom of a deeper issue in the platoon. Prejudice, unchecked, could fracture a unit, and Holt had seen it destroy careers. He made a call to Torres, his voice low. Keep an eye on Cole. And Ramsey. I want to see how this plays out. Torres, who respected Holt but didn't know the full story, agreed without question. The next morning, Amara woke with a new resolve. She wouldn't let Ramsey win, not by force, but by proving him wrong. She threw herself into training, ignoring the whispers and the glares. During a marksmanship test, she outscored everyone, her shots precise even as Ramsey muttered insults nearby. When Torres announced her score, a few recruits clapped, and for the first time, Amara felt a flicker of hope. But Ramsey was planning something bigger. He'd overheard a rumor about Amara's past, not the truth, but a twisted version that painted her as a troublemaker. He didn't know where it came from, but he didn't care. It was ammunition, and he intended to use it. As the platoon prepared for a final evaluation, a live mission overseen by senior officers, Ramsey saw his chance to take her down for good. The final evaluation was the crucible of basic training, a live mission that would determine who advanced and who washed out. The platoon was tasked with securing a mock enemy stronghold under simulated combat conditions. Amara knew this was her moment to shine or to fall. She also knew Ramsey was waiting for her to slip. As the platoon geared up, Torres briefed them with his usual intensity. This isn't a game. You fail here, you're done. Work as a unit, or you'll all go down. His eyes lingered on Amara and Ramsey, a silent warning. Amara checked her gear, her hands steady despite the knot in her stomach. She'd trained for this, lived for this. She wouldn't let Ramsey, or anyone, take it from her. The mission began at dawn, the platoon moving through a rugged valley toward the target. Amara's squad, still stuck with Ramsey, Daniels, and Weaver, was assigned to flank the stronghold. She took point, her senses sharp, scanning for traps. Ramsey stayed close, too close, his presence like a shadow she couldn't shake. Don't screw this up, Cole, he muttered as they approached a narrow pass. She ignored him, signaling the squad to move low and quiet. Halfway through the pass, Amara spotted movement, a sensor rigged to simulate an ambush. She raised her hand to halt the squad, but Ramsey ignored her again, pushing past with a scoff. You're too slow, he said, loud enough to draw attention. The sensor tripped, and a flare shot into the sky, marking their position. Torres's voice crackled over the radio. Furious. Squad 3. You're exposed. Regroup. Now. Amara's heart sank, but she didn't hesitate. She grabbed Ramsey's arm, pulling him behind cover as simulated gunfire erupted. Stay down, she hissed, her voice commanding. Daniels and Weaver followed her lead, surprised by her authority. Ramsey yanked his arm free, his face twisted with anger. Don't touch me, he spat, but he stayed low, knowing she'd just saved him from failing the mission. Amara led the squad through the pass, dodging traps and coordinating their movements. Her instincts were flawless, and even Daniels and Weaver started to follow her without question. Ramsey, though, was seething. As they reached the stronghold, he saw his chance. While Amara was setting up a defensive position, he slipped away, whispering to another squad leader about her record. By the time they secured the objective, the rumor had spread Amara Cole was a liability, a recruit with a shady past who'd gotten someone hurt. The platoon returned to base, exhausted but victorious. Torres gathered them for a debrief, his eyes scanning the group. Good work, most of you. Squad 3, you nearly botched it. Explain. Ramsey stepped forward, his voice smooth. Sir, Cole hesitated in the pass. She almost got us flagged. Amara's blood boiled, but before she could speak, Daniel surprised her. That's not true, sir, he said, his voice shaky but firm. She saved us. Ramsey tripped the sensor. The air went still. Ramsey's face paled, but he doubled down. She's got no business here, sir. I heard she's got a record trouble back home. That's why she's scarred up. The accusation hung heavy, and Amara felt every eye on her. She stepped forward, her voice steady. I have no record, sir. My scars are from a car accident that killed my mother. I've earned my place here. Torres's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. That's enough. General Holt stepped into the circle, his presence commanding silence. The recruits stiffened, unsure why a general was here. Holt's gaze locked on Amara, then Ramsey. Private Cole's record is clean. Cleaner than some of yours, he said, his eyes flicking to Ramsey. And I've been watching. She's outworked most of you. Ramsey's mouth opened, but no words came. Holt turned to Amara, his voice softer but firm. You've got something to say, soldier. Amara straightened, her heart pounding. Yes, sir. I'm here to serve, not to be judged for my skin or my scars. I've proven that. Holt nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. You have. And you're not done. The platoon was dismissed, but the weight of Holt's words lingered. Amara felt a spark of hope, but Ramsey's glare told her he wasn't finished. As she walked back to the barracks, she overheard him muttering to Weaver, "She's not getting away with this." Amara didn't know what he was planning, but she knew it was coming. What she didn't know was that Holt had already made a decision about her, one that would change everything. The days after the evaluation were a blur of drills and tension. Amara's performance had earned her respect from some recruits, but Ramsey's campaign against her only grew uglier. He stopped taunting her openly, wary of Holt's presence, but his whispers spread like poison. By the end of the week, half the platoon believed she'd hidden something about her pasta fight, a crime, something that made her unfit. Amara felt the isolation closing in, but she refused to break. During a night patrol exercise, Ramsey made his move. The platoon was split into pairs, and Amara was assigned to him. In the dark, with only their radios and rifles, he saw his chance. As they moved through a wooded area, he lagged behind, then deliberately misreported their position over the radio, claiming Amara had led them off course. The mistake cost their squad points, and when they returned to base, Ramsey played the victim. "She's reckless, sir," he told Torres. "I tried to keep up, but she wouldn't listen." Amara's protest was cut off by Torres's raised hand. "Enough. Both of you. Report to my office tomorrow." As she walked away, Ramsey's smirk was back, and Amara knew he'd planned it perfectly. The lie was believable, and with the platoon already primed to doubt her, it could end her career. That night, she barely slept, her mind racing. She'd come too far to lose everything now, but Ramsey's sabotage felt like a wall she couldn't climb. The next morning, Amara stood outside Torres's office, her heart heavy. Ramsey was there too, his confidence unshaken. Before they could enter, General Holt appeared, his expression unreadable. "I'll handle this," he told Torres, who nodded and stepped aside. Holt led Amara and Ramsey to a private room, closing the door behind them. "Private Ramsey," Holt began, his voice like steel. "You've made serious accusations against Private Cole. Care to repeat them?" Ramsey straightened, his story rehearsed. "She's a liability, sir. She's got a history trouble back home. And she botched the patrol last night. I'm just looking out for the platoon." Holt's eyes didn't waver. "And you, Cole? What's your side?" Amara took a breath, her voice steady despite the stakes. "Sir, I followed protocol. Ramsey misreported our position deliberately. I have no history of trouble. Me record is clean. I'm here to serve, and I've proven I can." Holt leaned back, his fingers tapping the file on his desk. "I've read your record, Cole. And I've watched you. You've outperformed most of this platoon, despite the obstacles." He turned to Ramsey, his voice dropping. "You, on the other hand, have a history of insubordination. And I have evidence, radio logs, witness statements that you lied about last night's patrol." Ramsey's face drained of color. "Sir," Holt cut him off. "You've targeted Cole from day one. Why? Because she's black? Because she's scarred? Or because she's better than you?" The room went silent, Ramsey's bravado crumbling. Holt stood, his presence towering. "You're done here, Ramsey. Dishonorable discharge. Effective immediately." Ramsey stammered, but Holt's glare silenced him. As he was escorted out, Holt turned to Amara. "You're not done, Cole. Follow me." Confused but resolute, Amara followed him to a secure briefing room, where a single file waited on the table. Holt closed the door and handed it to her. "Read it." The file was marked Phoenix Program. It outlined a covert initiative for elite recruits, those with exceptional skill and resilience. Amara's name was at the top, alongside a call sign, Phoenix. Her heart raced as she read about her selection, her potential, her future. Holt watched her, his voice soft but firm. "You've earned this, Cole. Not just because of your skill, but because of who you are." Amara's eyes met his, and for the first time, she felt seen not as a scarred black woman from Chicago, but as a soldier with a purpose. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Holt nodded, then leaned in, his voice a whisper. "Phoenix. That's your call sign. Wear it well." He saluted her, a gesture that carried the weight of his respect. Ramsey's discharge sent shockwaves through the platoon. By morning, the news had spread, and the whispers about Amara stopped. Recruits who doubted her now avoided her gaze, some out of shame, others out of respect. Daniels and Weaver approached her during a break, their faces sheepish. "We were wrong about you, Cole," Daniels said. Ramsey had us fooled. Amara nodded, her expression neutral. Just do better, she said, turning back to her gear. But the victory was bittersweet. Amara knew Ramsey's prejudice wasn't unique. It was a symptom of something deeper, something she'd face again. Still, Holt's words Phoenix burned in her chest, a reminder of what she could become. The Phoenix program was a chance to rise above, to serve in ways she'd never imagined. She didn't know the details yet, but she knew it was elite, classified, and hers. Training intensified as graduation approached, and Amara threw herself into it. She led her squad through drills with a confidence she hadn't felt before. Her scars no longer a source of shame, but a badge of survival. Torres noticed the change, pulling her aside one evening. You've got something special, Cole. Don't let anyone make you forget it. His words, gruff but sincere, were the closest he'd come to praise. Off the training ground, Amara found unexpected allies. A quiet recruit named Sarah, who'd stayed neutral during Ramsey's campaign, started sitting with her at meals, sharing stories of her own struggles. Another, a lanky kid named Malik, admitted he'd been too scared to speak up against Ramsey. I should have had your back, he said. Amara shrugged, but her smile was genuine. You can now. As graduation neared, Amara learned more about the Phoenix program. It wasn't just about combat. It was about leadership, strategy, and breaking barriers. Holt met with her privately, explaining that she'd been chosen not just for her skill, but for her resilience. The Army needs soldiers like you, he said. People who've faced the worst and come out stronger. You're going to change things, Cole. The night before graduation, Amara sat alone, staring at the stars. She thought of her mother, of the accident that had scarred her, of the years she'd fought to be more than her circumstances. She'd come to Fort Irwin expecting a fresh start, but she'd found something bigger a purpose. The scars on her face were no longer a mark of pain. They were a map of her survival, a testament to her strength. The next morning, the platoon gathered for the graduation ceremony, their uniforms crisp under the desert sun. Amara stood tall, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Torres called her name, and as she stepped forward to receive her insignia, she felt the weight of every challenge she'd overcome. The platoon cheered, louder for her than for anyone else, and she knew she'd earned it. Holt was there, watching from the sidelines. As the ceremony ended, he approached her, his face unreadable. Private Cole, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. You've got a long road ahead, but I know you'll walk it well. He leaned in, his voice a whisper only she could hear. Phoenix. Then he saluted, a gesture that silenced the crowd. Amara returned the salute, her heart swelling with pride. Graduation day wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Amara was assigned to a special unit under the Phoenix program, stationed at a classified base in Virginia. The transition was jarring, from the open desert to a high-security facility where every move was scrutinized. Her new team was small, elite, and diverse soldiers from every background, each with their own scars, visible or not. For the first time, Amara felt like she belonged. Her training in Virginia was unlike anything at Fort Irwin. It wasn't just about combat. It was about strategy, intelligence, and leadership under pressure. She learned to hack systems, analyze threats, and command teams in simulated crises. Her instructors, all veterans of the Phoenix program, pushed her harder than Torres ever had, but they also respected her. They saw what Holt had seen, a soldier who wouldn't break. Amara's past still followed her, though. During a briefing, an instructor mentioned her scars, not with malice, but with curiosity. They tell a story, he said. Amara nodded, her voice steady. They tell mine. She shared her story, not the rumors, but the truth of the accident. Her mother's death. Her fight to survive. The room was silent, and when she finished, the instructor saluted her. "You're Phoenix for a reason," he said. Back at Fort Irwin, Ramsey's discharge had left a mark. The platoon, now scattered to different assignments, carried the lesson of his failure. Some reached out to Amara, sending messages of respect or apology. She didn't hold grudges. She was too focused on her future. But she never forgot the weight of their silence, the way prejudice had festered until Holt intervened. Holt became a mentor, checking in on her progress. During a visit to Virginia, he shared his own story, how he'd faced racism in the Army decades ago, how he'd risen to general despite it. "You're not just fighting for yourself," he told her. "You're fighting for everyone who comes after you." His words stayed with her, a reminder that her journey was bigger than her own ambitions. Amara's first mission with the Phoenix program was a test of everything she'd learned. She led a small team to secure a compromised intelligence outpost, her decisions sharp and unflinching. When the mission succeeded, her team celebrated her, calling her Phoenix with pride. She felt her mother's presence in that moment, a quiet strength that had carried her through. But the world outside the Army hadn't changed. On a rare leave in Chicago, Amara walked through her old neighborhood, her uniform drawing stares. An older woman, recognizing her, stopped her. "You're that Cole girl, aren't you?" Made it big. Amara smiled, nodding. The woman hugged her, tears in her eyes. "You're showing them, baby. Keep going." Amara returned to base with renewed purpose. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a symbol, proof that scars seen or unseen didn't define a person's worth. She thought of Ramsey, of the recruits who'd doubted her, and realized she didn't need their approval. She had her own. Months later, Amara stood before a new group of recruits at Fort Irwin, invited by Holt to speak at a training seminar. She wore her uniform with pride, her scars visible but unremarked upon. The recruits, wide-eyed and nervous, listened as she told her story, not just of her scars, but of the prejudice she'd faced and the strength she'd found. "When I came here," she said, her voice clear and strong, "someone told me I didn't belong. They saw my skin, my scars, and wrote my story for me. But I wrote my own. You will too." The room was silent, then erupted in applause. A young black recruit approached her afterward, her eyes shining. "I want to be like you," she said. Amara smiled, handing her a Phoenix program patch. "You already are. Just keep fighting." Holt watched from the back, his face proud. He'd seen Amara transform from a recruit under fire to a leader who inspired others. Her call sign, Phoenix, was more than a name. It was a promise of resilience, of rising from ashes. As she left the stage, he saluted her again, a gesture that carried the weight of their shared journey. Amara's story spread beyond Fort Irwin, inspiring recruits across the Army. She became a symbol of what was possible when you refused to let others define you. Her scars, once a source of shame, were now a badge of honor, a reminder that strength came from surviving the fire, not avoiding it. In her quiet moments, Amara thought of her mother, of the accident that had changed her life, of the long road to this point. She'd faced prejudice, doubt, and her own fears, but she'd emerged stronger. The world still had its Ramseys, its whispers, its barriers. But Amara Cole Phoenix was ready for them. She'd earned her place, not just in the Army, but in a future she was building, one mission at a time.